Joseph here, and welcome to my storybook. Today I'm gonna read this book called How to Fight Racism. Last time I just read chapter 3. This time will be chapter 4 in this book. Chapter 4. How to Study the History of Race. In his previously insightful, easy, unnameable of guess, unspeakable crimes, James Blaine reflecting on the importance of history. Better explained, for history, as nearly no one seems to know, is not merely something to be read, and it does not reference merely, or even present to the past. On the contrary, the great force of history comes from the fact that we carry it within us, are unconstantly controlled by it in many ways. And history is literally present in all that we do. History is alive in order to electrify and fight racism. We must learn from the past, contrary to the popular saying. His historians are quick to point out that history does not, in fact, repeat itself. Historical events are too circumstantial and too conjunct on a multiple of factors, decisions, actors, and conditions to even simply repeat. But history does rhyme. We can hear candidates and sympathizers of the past and the present. Learning about history is more than learning about what has happened before. It is about understanding and what is happening now. In this chapter, I want to address the need to develop a greater awareness of race as it has played out in the broader community, nation, and the world. This builds on the work. This builds on the work you did in the previous chapter of written low racial or topography. Adult law experiences contains deep wells of wisdom to inform your journey in pursuit of racial justice. This is not the only kind of knowledge you would need. This is a point that people of color need to hear as well. If you have endured racism or discrimination because of your racial indefinite, do you have important and undisputable experiences and knowledge about the racism factors. But individual experiences are necessarily limited. Learning about the history of race is a task for everyone. Essential understandings. Why study history? History is contact. And similarly, my professors taught me that in order to read the Bible effectively, you must know the context of the part of the Bible you are reading. I learned to ask whether the passage is probably or negative, who the authors were, when the writing, and to who. What were the social characters and conditions at the time, and what did the words mean in the original Hebrew, Aramaic, or Greek languages. All of this is important to help readers rightly divine the word truth. And the same is true when it comes to learning history. To learn history is to learn context. As historically often said, everything has a history, and that includes issues of racial justice, like the man of Escalation in the Bible who understood the times. First Corinthians 12 verse 32. If we want to understand the present, we must first understand the past. While a white police officer killed Mike Brown, a black teenager, and made Black Lives Matter a national reality cry. I, like many others, sought to understand the situation. How did our fundamentally white police force come to patrol and predator in our black neighborhood? What was the community of Ferguson so segregated in the first place? As I endeavored to understand our present day context, I found that historians often had the most helpful information than explaining the history of redlining and restricting consequences that related black people to contain neighborhoods. They talk about the origins of the police force and their connections to slave patrols. I learned from historians that the past is a key to understand and fighting racism today. We need to study history not simply to know more about the past, but to know more about ourselves. History is about indemnity. Rightly remembering our commemorative stories is a way of setting ourselves within a broader narrative. History tells us who and where we come from, how the people and events before us had shaped who we are now, and what kind of actions we need to take in order to push and more regularly against future. Whereas a sense of history relieves our sense of self and fortunes. During the protests and Reformation of the 16th century, the Latino praise of forces back to the sources became a, became a rally cry. The reformers organized and renewed aspirations on reading and biography. Text in the original Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic languages, not summoning us into pretension of them. In order to better understand Scripture, the education of our preliminary sources is also a key tenet of doing good history. Learning about the history of race potentially has transformative power because it shows not simply what people believe or aspire to, but what they call actually indeed. Although historic analysis always evolves into the potential, the raw material history of facts and the foundation for any good historically examinable crimes from preliminary sources. The evidence left behind by historic actors themselves. Preliminary sources can take the form of documents, speechless, songs, journals, interviews, newspapers, physical objects, and much more. It is the factual basis of history that makes it so effectively the understanding race. A Pro Resources survey from 2011, 150 years after the Civil War began, showed that 48% of respondents that the Civil War was about states' rights, compared to 38% who thought it was about slavery. It adapted to the war to the states' rights. People mean that the Confederate States did not go to war with the Union because they wanted to pursue slavery because they protested the supposed interference of the federal government in state level affairs. But if the war was about states' rights, then we have to ask, what did the states want the right to do? Preliminary sources have helped answer this question. South Carolina lead the way as the first state to secede from the Union. The state credited northern states increasing its intelligence statements, particularly the legislatures to enforce laws related to returning and escape slaves to their former masters and causing for separation. But in increasing hostility on the part of the non-slaveholding states to the institution of slavery has led to this disregard of our obligations. Thus, the Constitutional Compact has been deliberately broken and disregarded by the non-slaveholder states, and the consequences follows that South Carolina is released from the whole abolition. The enforcement of laws concerning slavery providing the direct impetus for South Carolina to succeed. Similarly, the Mississippi Act's sections explain the reasons why the state's leaders decided to withdraw from the Union and join the Confederate. They clearly tied their concerns to slavery. Our position is directly identified with the institution of slavery. The greatest military interest of the war is labor supplies. The product was constructed by far the largest and most important parcels of commemoration of the oil. Alexander Stevens, the Vice President of the Confederate States of America, outlined the outreach of the rebellious states in his famous Congress speech given in March 1861. He said that Confederacy constructively rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery and subordination to the superior race is his natural and noble condition. Within the context of these preliminary sources, you could essentially said that Confederate states secede for states' rights, but only if you mean the supposed right of states to decide whether they will allow white people to own black people. An awareness of history derailed from preliminary sources makes it easier to dismantle the matter and untruths which still encodes today. The removal of this counter offers suggestions for how to develop an awareness about history as it relates to race. These are practices that will help you understand the contents necessary for identifying and fighting racism in the present day. Racial justice practice. Learn from Academy historians. If you visit the history section of many brick and mortar bookstore chains, you might get the impression that the general public is only interested in military campaigns, presidents, and biographies of the rich, famous, and notorious. There is, of course, much more to know about history than what we generally find in commercial bookstores offer. If we wish to delve deeper into the history of race, we must learn from the Academy of Historians. These men and women had dedicated their careers to the careful study of the past. They had spent incredible hours in the stacks at libraries, poring over thousands of documents in the achievements and in lonely office, pondering how to make sense of the past. Academic historians must also suggest their work to prevail when other experts in the field examine the results to offer encourage and correct it. So the resulting work is collaboration effort that have been volatile through the professional standards of the academy discipline. It can easily take a scholar a decade or more of research with within a revulsion to compose a single polygraph. All of this means you will technically find more detailed and more attaching information from academic historians than the popular history found on the sleeves of lost bookstore chains. To learn from academic historians, you should first determine the awareness of interest. What time period do you want? What time period do you want to learn about? What nation or community or a special history, gender, race, class, politics, culture? Look for books from university percent, for example. University of Illinois Press, University of Kentucky Press, Princeton University Press. These publishers focus on publishing texts from scholars whose work has undergone rigorous preparation and revision. While academic publishers has a tradition for being dry and accentuating to those outside the field, there's good news. The current historian has been making their work increasingly accessible to the public. Black Perspective is a blog that is deeply committed to producing and this censoring cutting edge resource that is accessible to the public and is all about towards advancing the lives of people of African descent and humanity. Sponsored by the African American Intellectual Historic Scholarship. They have published hundreds of articles from top scholars about nearly every fact of black history, both nation and interrogation. Columns such as Made by History at the Washington Post demonstrated the commitment of some national news outlets to provide their readers with the historic content necessary to understand current events. The popularity of podcasts such as backstory and documentaries such as 13 and I Am Not Low Negro Intense to the current hunger for history among the general population. Of all of these resources have been composed or informed by historian who knows the content better than anyone else. This is not about only listening to people with Dr. Phil thoughts. Useful knowledge can come from people with a variety of educational backgrounds and quality factories. Research justice means learning research history for those most informed about it. How to spot truthworthy history. The discipline of history, even in the most scholarly forms, is one thing that emphasizes about fact. The data requires international and opinion. What topics people accuse, what questions they ask, what access they have to resources, how they choose to arrange the fact, and what meaning they give to historic stories and events, all depend on suggested reasonable. Historian Kevin Gannon describes the rhythm of the adjective in the written of history, but the idea of the adjective version of history in telling, which all others are developed, is that evolutionary. There is no adjective in history. The very act of selecting a topic, for example, is privileged sense of facts, making them historic over others. This implies that all history treatments hold some core barriers. This is not necessarily a bad thing as long as you know history telling has an element of subjective. All history has some sort of slap and suggesting to factor L, then how do you know which history to trust? First, as stated above, you should seek out primary sources. The best way to verify the fact and do decide for yourself what yourself what they mean is to go to the original document. In this delatory instructions make all kinds of historic documents available online. If you want to know exactly what Stokey Colin Miller carrying through, say in a speech, you can explore the SNCC digital website. If you want to know what articles and data choose for the first issue of Christianity Today magazine in 1956, you can subscribe to the magazine and source in the archives for yourself. You can source issues of the New York Times all the way back to the 19th century on their website. Every state has some sort of official responsible archivists and history. Colleges and universities also have specialist collections, such as Stanford University's Martin Luther King Jr. Resource and Education Institutions, which contains the most extensive collection of King's papers. If you cannot find any original sources, then there is good reason to be skeptical of data. Going to the preliminary sources enables you to see for yourself. The example was already mentioned related to the particular historic event or person. You can also guard as a correlate or secondary sources, those analyses that relied on primary sources, by going to the original documents as much as possible. Second, you should rely on multiple sources for historic data. Cross-check information with several sources to see if there's a consensus or resourcing for a project. I found a powerful and incriminating quote that I want to use to make a point about racism in politics, but I had to verify its accessory first. I read the quote in a news article, then I traced the quote to a book. The book references in an author interview and primary sources, which I was then able to find online. Sure enough, there was the quote story there by the subject himself. But I had to track it down across 3 different platforms to be sure I had it right. If an event has been performed, to be sure I had it right. If an event has been demanded historically significant, it is likely that others would have agreed and written or said otherwise. Communication about it. Do your best to verify facts by comparing multiple sources. Finally, be aware of any history that casts the story of humanity as one of an individual's progress with clear heroes and and villains. In 1931, British historian Hebrew Butterfield wrote a book called The Wind Interrupts Interpretation of History, named after one of the 2 major political parties in Britain during the 1700s and 1800s. A regular interpretation of history comes into play wherever history is written either by or on behalf of a trumpeter elite, simply clouded negatives that pit champions of progress against international backwards and morality questionable opponents usually obscure more than they reveal. Was victory in World War II an unmilitary trumpet, not according to the victims of the atomic bombs dropping on Hezbollah and Nagorno-Karabakh, or those who feared nuclear war. Well, the Cowboys, the good guys, and the Negro Americans, the bad guys. If we not if we reveal it from the perspective of the intentionally we inhabit. Where we find ourselves in the present day is the result of complex and competing forces that invade and learn on negatives of progress. The line between good and the evil is not always clear. So for the historians, their honor and complexity of human experience. Relearn local history. One of the best places to start learning about the history of race is right where you are. Important history is all around us. But the significant feeling of what happened nearby can sometimes be lost because familiarity is the inevitable. Sometimes we grow so accustomed to seeing our surroundings that we had to rediscover how to integrate our environment to glean lessons for the local past. Spoken word artist propaganda is featured in a song called Gangland by Lisa. In just a few words, he explained what's in a name. There's a high school in Alabama named after Robert E. Lee, and it's 89% black. You don't see the hour. What do to that sponsor? It's simple. You don't like me. You don't like me. Of course, Robert E. Lee was a general in the Confederate Army during the Civil War and became one of the most celebrated cultural icons in the multitude of the lost cause. A negative that capitalized on the Confederate as an honorable individual to pursue the certain real life against the egalities of Northerners and black people. It creates legendary heroes and displays villainous. The last cause is still silent today, and as the Confederate champions involved and knuckle past to which some people wish to return. For instance, naming a high school after Lee, and many who fought to defeat race-based and challenge slavery is, in itself, discriminations. But when the school's popularity is also overwhelming black, that is an insult. Have you ever wondered who or what a place was named after? Things surrounding us on street signs, buildings, countries, and cities. Names matter. They explain part of their community's history. Who gets to tell that history and what they value? The names in your community communicate violence about the history. Names like Alton Brothers Country, Business Salvador River, and Margaret Intermediate School reveal hard truth about cities across the United States. For the most probable owners, multiple followers are the cause of the war predecessors of the predecessor Heartland Native Americans were here first. And we are our land. In 2015, Shaw's, a man of narrow and Dutch American district, walked out to a group of people assembled for the Columbus Day celebration and said, "You cannot discover lands already inhabited." In a book he forward called Unsettled Truths, Charles experienced that he would pursue the census again and again, getting louder each time until he finally arrived at the front of the group. "Suck it up," said one of the white men gathering to celebrate the occasion. Evidently one of the prostitutes grabbing Charles' arm and rubbing and escorting him away, saying, "You're not welcome here." The people who gathered to celebrate Columbus that day may not have wanted to hear what Mark Charles had to say, but his point must be unprovided and repeat. Contrary to the total history lessons many of us learned, Christopher Columbus did not discover North America. These lands already had to divorce and stories proliferate on England and habits. The United States exists on land stolen from Native Americans as people concerned about racist injustice, grappling with the controversy of living in a land of liberty that was built on the displaceable and border of Negro Americans. One perspective message we can take is to learn and who the original inhabitants were and what they are now. Several tools now exist to remind us who was originally lived on the land we currently occupy. If you go online, you can find interesting maps that allow you to enter an address or a zip code, and it will tell you which nation originally lived on the land in that era. Beyond simply knowing the name of the nation, you can go further by learning its history. What language did they speak? What treaties or rules lead to their disappointment? What is the state of the nation in the present day? As a small but public culture, some speakers began their events by acknowledging the nation that once lived on the land, reminding people about the Native Americans, the indigenous people of North America, the former Polynesian Lake Masons, and cultural discussions helps develop a sense of humanity by acknowledging the most people in North America benefit from the dip of Negro land. We are all in participation in injustice. Take them down. Black activists have been elected to the premises of four Confederate monuments in the city of New Orleans for years before Mitch Lindbergh, the former mayor of New Orleans, added his voice in 2015 to the multi-year effort to remove them. Still, against most oppositions, the last four monuments came down in 2017, and Lindbergh gave a speech to welcome the occasion. He began in the right place with the original inhabitants of the land of which New Orleans stands. He named the Cultivar Hudson Negro, the Covenant of Hebronella de Soto, Robert Carver, Senator de La Salle, their candidates, their editors, the legislators, and more. He went on to discuss the city's history as a major slave porter responsible for the trade of scores of Africans. He spoke of the 549 legislature in the state of Louisiana, Then he asked why there are no slave ships momentums, no monument markers, or public land to remember the lynching or the slave blocks. Nothing to remember this long chapter of our lives. Landauer constructed the absence of momentums, culminating in original Black history, and relentless with the principle of confounding momentums. He did not see them as innocent, brilliant or patriotic symbols. These mountains proposed fully celebrate a factor, symbolizing confederation of knowing the death, of knowing the environment as a son event, and the terror that the death, wait a minute, without fun. And the terror that actually is stood for. For that reason, as well as the need to bring healing to the rich colored divide city and state, he said, we have to reference with our commitment to the official where each citizen is guaranteed the equality American gift of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Landowner was right in communities. Nationwide can learn from the determination. And generally, he and his supporters empathy in the face of volatile opposition. Racial justice requires removable momentums that honor racist individuals and white supremacy. In dozens of cities around the United States, and not just in the South, and blenders as confederations pockmark the public landscape, then fly in front of flags, or stand as stone cities and momentums. These momentums and symbols should come down as a culture that communities are moving in the right direction on the path of racial justice. One concrete action you can take is to find out who lost down honors and the nature of secession hard connection. Each state delineates the salutes that honor people significant in the history of their state. Too often these women and men stood for slavery, segregation, and racism. The state of Mississippi, for example, honors Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederate States of America. They also honor James Zachary George, one of the men who signed the Mississippi Actress of Successors Court early in this chapter. George is also known as the architect of the 1890s Mississippi Construction Resort as a template for black voters. This friendly military. What does law state honor? Will lobby members of law state episode to remove and replace racists? Some people argue to remove a Confederate incorporation. They argue that taking them down is alternative to easing in history. As a student of history, pursuing tenability and interfacting from the past is very important to me. But there are many ways to do that without giving the impression that our communities celebrate slavery or honor the individuals who did. At the University of Mississippi, students and secretariats, factories, and staff successfully lobbying for the removal of the Confederacy that has stood at the main interests of the campus since 1906 to the much more sincere Confederate cemetery that is the final resting place of the university students who died fighting in the Civil War. Others have suggested putting the momentums into museum where there can be real in historic context. Another suggestion is some have proposed, especially for buildings named after slaveholders, and suggesting Nazareth is putting out plots that explain the person's beliefs and coordinating efforts to move beyond such legacies and learn from the mistakes of the past. There's a difference between being intentional and remembrance. We should remember the past, event the most painful parts, but that does not mean we need to venture those aspects of our history. Another objection some had is the way of Confederate symbols may have meant in the past. The connection now is more positive. Hatred, not hate, is the real feeling others invoke in the defense of Confederate insurrection. The problem with hatred is not hate. As a defense of progression, Confederate symbolism is that insult as the Confederate exists to defend race bases, counter slavery. Its hardest is hate. It is the hardest of freedom, of the remains of God and black people and unity. There is much to celebrate about the culture and traditions prevalent in the southern United States. Blues music, catfish, Margaret Walker Alexander, and much more. While represent a visual and a culture who hardest who appreciate with the most reproducible aspect of that place. For Christians, scriptures teaches us, do nothing out of selfish, unbounded or vain concept, rather, in humanity find others above ourselves. Phil 2 verse 3. Selfishness says, this symbol represents hardness, not hate to me, even though it represents terror and disharmonization to others. Humanity says, whatever achievements I may have to accompany as symbols and moments. I value others enough to concern their pain over my pride. Moments and symbols are about memory. How we choose to remember the past. They are about who gets included and who gets left out or about neglected. For too long, people investment in white supremacy had incentivated the celebration of whiteness and the integration of people of color into our public landscapes. Fighting racism means honor what is honorable as a nation. We have lived and put racists on our present tales while claiming to be committed to liberty and justice for all. A minimum requirement for racial progress is to remove the threatening symbol of racism to replace them with commemorative nations or those who fought for the diversity and equality of our people. Conduct an oral history. On July 17, 2020, the leaders of the civil rights movement both died. Congregationman John Lewis had been fighting for racial justice since the 1960s on the streets and in the nation's capital, and Reverend C.T. Rimmer was one of the freedom riders who walked to end segregation and spent his life preaching an organization for racial progress. Today, we are living during the final years of the lives of the participants in the civil rights movement. Even the longest of these participants are now in their 70s and 70s and 80s. What will happen when the last generation of the outrageousness passes from the art? What question will remain unanswered? Who will inspire the next generation of racial justice activities? We cannot prolong everyone's life indefinitely, but we can honor their stories by inviting them to recount and record these negatives. This is the purpose of oral history. The oral history association says oral history is a monitoring gallery, preventing and interpreting the voice and memories of people, communities, and populations in past events. Before human beings created written language, they passed down stories of their families and communities through oral history. In West African tradition, the Crudup, pronunciation GREO, what a personal responsibility for remembering and sharing stories. They were communicated through poetry and song, and their role was indivisible in preserving the history and hearts of the people. We need modern day works who will take the responsibility to record and share the oral recollections of people as an academic discipline. Oral historian had accessibility target and written about how to respond and respectfully gather the recollections of others. The Sutton Oral History Project at the University of North Carolina, for instance, analyzing the academic study of oral history to preserve the voices of their Sutton past. The Library of Congress contains a lot of oral history projects that are delighting and scrambling. Those collections and others often examples of personality, collecting and achievement oral history. Your efforts to discover an oral history need not be professional or academic, but they should still be collected and recorded constructively. Oral history is first and foremost an individual. You must honor the people behind those stories. At the most basic level, taking your history means you cannot share anyone's story without their express permission, even if meant only for their own personal use. You must tell the story, the intentions. Century best practice are also associated with collection and sharing in oral history. You must clearly identify or propose. Are you intending to find information about your family? Is this intention for a church or other relations community? What do you intend to do with the information? Ask informed questions. Come to the conversation, having already done your homework, so you know what questions to ask. Do not waste the individual's time fumbling with questions they cannot answer or trying to come up with queries on the spot. When possible, send in the questions beforehand and so people have time to think and even collect tangle out the facts. Ask opening questions such as, what was good like growing up? What was your first job? Can you describe the racial climate when you grew up? Did you grow up in a relation community? What did the people around the globe communicate about race? Do any incidents around race stand out to you? At resources for the University of California at Los Angeles, UCLA advisors. In general, think of the university's topics of. Law interview as structure like an innovation of parallel or general questions first, followed by follow-up questions that ask for more details. The goal is to collect negatives to better understand the historic content of the community through the lines of the particular person. These histories can add learnable information that you cannot find online or in books to round out other facts and data. Conduct interest in history. In 2014, the President's Commissioner on Slavery at the University of Virginia, organizing a group of other regional colleges and universities that have all decided to study the institution's history and connect this to slavery. The original group soon explained belong and single state and became the university's study slavery constructions. The USS allows participating institutions to work together as they address both historic and concerning personal issues dealing with the race and tailoring and higher education and universities communities, as well as the accomplishments, legacies of slavery in modern American scholarship, such as intentional sought as marble for any intentional that risks to resemble its racial past. Our institutions that are serious about racial justice should examine their own organization, histories, remembering and repair begin at home. The communities and organizations need to explore their own ties to racism and white supremacy in order to have the attention necessary to speak about racial justice today. They must go back and do the hard work for making it researchfully and prepare for their own acts of injustice before moving forward with innovations for the racism just future. The university's studying slavery group displays the power of working in cooperation with other institutions engaged in similar work that resemble their racial past. The group hosts several seminars where institutions can share best practices in their journeys or transformation as they honor and understand their racial past. Courses, demonstrations, and other relations instructions can use the same combination opposed to cut down their own instruction histories and move further down the path of racial justice. And to commemorate Juneteenth. In the days before the intentionary and email, these trended to travel slowly. It wasn't until June 19, 1865, a full 2 months after Robert E. Lee surrendered his Confederate Army to Union force, and 2 years after the independence proclaiming, the enslaved black people in Texas heard that the Civil War had ended and that independence would soon be a reality. In the wake of the announcement, black people erupted into celebration. The long night of their enslavement was finally giving way to the bright dawn of freedom. Juneteenth and Continental consisted of the words June and 19th stands as the oldest celebration of black exodus in among the people in the United States. To this day, the occasion marks the progress of the United States foreign legal approval of race-based shacking slavery to legal abolishment and after centuries of resistance. The intention of the national bloodless war and the Constitutional Amendment history is speaking through events compared to the significance of the involvement of slavery in the United States. It forever changed the politic and social landscape of the country. Let our nation thus legislate little to reflect its importance. Setting aside Juneteenth as a day of remembrance, combination, and celebration will accomplish at least three goals. First, it will remind Americans that their country was important. The idea and practice that white people could own black people. The people of the United States will have an annual reminder of the great tragedy and a sensible suffering of millions and the accompanying settlement of the nation. Second, a national Juneteenth holiday will be an opportunity to celebrate progress, and the detention was a massive step forward in the cause of racial justice. Many people sacrificed their lives in its pursuit. Freedom for the nearby 4 million black people under slavery is a cause for rejoicing despite the many failures of the United States with regard to racism. There is still a need to pause to remember what has been accomplished. Third, celebrating Black acapella will also remind us of the work that still needs to be done. In looking back at the history of slavery, people of the United States will have the chance to reflect on the unfinished revolution and consider ways to move forward. Most states have some form of the recombination or commemoration or record, and some efforts have been made to make Juneteenth a national holiday. But people in the United States can do more to recognize a second parallel with greater internationality. If you are able, plan a trip to coincide with Juneteenth and consider a visit to the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C., or joining to Mark Terry to visit the National Memorial to Peace and Justice dedicated to the victims of lynching. Historically, justice has served as Juneteenth celebration sites, and the tradition continues today. Getting a church of God in Christ in Lakeville, Louisiana, as opening of the live gospel and jazz music, African drumming lessons, and a parade to commemorate the occasion. Local congregation or other groups can, with a statement or commemoration during services, preach in sermon or record a speech message on Little Berry, host Sunday school or Bible study lessons on history and liberation. Bring guest speakers, historians, preachers, community leaders, host a plant or festivals for the public, or offering a financial donation to the Black League organization or a museum dedicated to Black history. As the commemoration of Juneteenth becomes more common, white people should be careful not to punish the whole holiday from black people. This happens when white people ease the suffering and brutality of slavery in favor of the celebration of masses of progress and progress. It also happens when white people fail to remember their historic role in racial injustice and celebrate it as if they had nothing to do with the conditions that made black and composite people necessary in the first place. The fact remains that white people practice and defended race based on character slavery in the United States, and this should be based in character and this should be as cause for humble culture. It is a day of celebration for black people, White people must rejoice or more along with black people while also remembering the white supremacy. The, their ancestors created and formed what they still benefit. White ancestors created and formed still benefit. White people may consider supporting black churches or organizations as they celebrate Juneteenth. They can host a teaching intentions as they celebrate Juneteenth. They can host a teach-in for other white people to learn about slavery and its legacies. White people can also use it as a day to evaluate for political and sentimental cleanses that lead to racial equality. People of any race are determined should commit military Juneteenth, but do so with the opponents with references in humanity. Well, Foucault said, the past is never dead. It's not even past. The RAC of racial justice reminds us to build. Building our awareness necessarily includes learning more about the history of race and racism. The past unavailably impacts the present. If we want to pursue racial justice today, then we need to know what happened in the past to create the community consensus of the present. History provides the volatile context to pursue solutions that are written in a form understanding the cause, the consequences of racism. This is the book that they have studied this thing for this one. Next time we'll be reading Relationships for the part 2. Until then, this is the book on How to Write Racism. Until then, I'm Joseph Kurt. Had a good time, and God bless.